Get cracking.
Okay, Catherine, you may go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Good to see everybody back after summer seemed awful short, but here we are. And we're going to go forward. We're going to have all of our meetings this year, right? Yeah. We're not going to cancel any. Yeah, it's all going to be good. We have a full agenda, so we should just, I suppose, get started. First of all, any more agenda items that we need to know about? I don't think so. Okay. Our first presentation, 1.1, item 1.1, is Variety Village talking to us about Volt hockey, which is exciting. Okay.
Thank you guys for inviting us into your meeting. We're happy to be here with you all. So just to give you a little background about myself, I am newer to the Variety team. I'm going on about my 4th or 5th month here, but I joined the team to help us rebuild and relaunch our Volt hockey program after the world took their little COVID hiatus. So all of our community centers throughout most of Canada are getting back into their programming. They are reviving all of their programs and their sports. We had a really successful summer at Variety with our summer camp programs. So that was fantastic. So I came on board to really focus on growing the Volt hockey program. I'll give a very brief description of what Volt hockey is for everyone. So we launched it here in Canada in 2019. It is very big throughout a lot of Europe in places like Denmark and Sweden. And what it essentially is, it's a really fantastic form of accessible hockey that is really great for individuals who have limited mobility kind of from your chest and shoulders down. So it is an electric powered, it's got a battery. It's a battery powered hockey chair. Just to give you a bit of a visual, it's got 3 wheels and it's got a little plastic like hockey paddle on the front. And they go relatively fast. They get up to a pretty good speed as well. And since launching them in 2019 here in Canada, we've had a really great success in establishing about 6 locations throughout the GTA, where we have been able to fundraise money and purchase Volt chairs and distribute those chairs, which was great. And we were working to designing a really fantastic grassroots program. And then after taking that COVID break where all of these community centers and facilities shut down, we've come to the point where we're trying to revisit the way that we want to establish the program. And the connections were made here because what we're looking to our community to really help us with is finding homes for these Volt chairs in communities where there is obviously a really great hockey presence, because this is, it's hockey, it's Canada's sport. It's just a form of it that opens the doors for individuals who thought they might have never really been able to play, which is fantastic. So what we're just trying to reach out to the community and, get people's brains kind of thinking a little about possible homes on where we could put some of these chairs. We have explored the Barrie area, working with some individuals at the city, and we wanted to see if there were any other outlets or any other just revenues or places who might have connections in communities where there would be people who would be interested in coaching the program and really just kind of housing and creating a Volt hockey team of their own out in that area. So that's what we were hoping to just put in everyone's brain and see if there would be any interest in any of our community connections that would be able to help us out.
Now, Audrey, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, sorry, Audrey. Are you looking to build a number of teams across Ontario and have them compete in some sort of, inter-county league or something like that?
Yeah, so our goal is we obviously have chairs here at Variety, We are starting up our program in the end of September, so we will be running practices out of our facility with members who have enrolled. We are also looking at the Ability Center in Whitby and the Pan Am Sports Center here in Toronto. And our goal is to launch the teams at the Ability Center in Whitby and the other Toronto location. We're working towards a January start, because with Volt Hockey, what we're discovering is you have to really voice it to your community to, number one, educate people about what it is, because I myself didn't even really know until I was introduced to it through Variety. So we are working in those communities to host a number of try it days, just so that people can actually come out, get in the Volt Hockey chair and try it out and see if it is the sport for them. So our goal is to work with communities to hopefully, if they could work with us towards that January start, that's fantastic. But we're flexible with timelines. And what's really great is we supply the chairs and the repairs and batteries. We are there for that. But each community center kind of has freedom as to how they want to run the program, on the days they would like to run the program, and also the fees that they associate with it. It really comes down to the individual community center. We try and explain it as, you know, your fees for enrolling in the program should just cover the costs of what it takes for you to run it. So if you have to hire a coach because you don't have someone who can volunteer, position your fees for the program where you're just, you know, you're breaking even on trying to run it. The really big goal is the end of 2022 in Denmark, there is an international tournament. So we would absolutely love to have a Canadian team that we would be able to send to participate in that tournament. So our goal is to really take the Volt Hockey sport and grow it across Canada. So we are able to get together a team or two that we can send overseas to compete in the end of next year. So that's our really big end goal.
Louise?
Just to get an idea, how many members are there on a team? And how big are these Volt hockey?
The chair itself, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the chair itself, they're not very large. They're smaller than a golf cart. They are made to fit a child anywhere from the age of 7 to, adult size. So they're not large. They're not very hard to store. We have 11 chairs that we store at Variety in kind of a really small section of our facility. So they don't take up a lot of room in a community center, which is great. And I'm sorry, what was the other question?
How many on a team?
Yeah, so a lot of our places set up, you have 8 players on a team. You can still operate with 3 and 3. So you could operate a game with 6. It really depends on what kind of age groups and enrollment you get. A lot of the centers try and structure it where, you don't have a 8-year-old playing against a 19-year-old. So if you get enough enrollment, you can kind of section off the age groups for who is playing. And it's a 30-minute game. So it's 2 15-minute halves. It's really fun. The chairs get really fast. We recently at Variety had a retired NHL player come in and visit us and get into the chairs because we were filming a kind of just an instructional how to play video. And once it was really funny to watch this very large 6'4" man get into this Volt chair. But he had a really good time once he was able to, get used to the control stick and how the machine works. So it's a really fun sport for anyone who enrolls.
Audrey, do you have as many girls as boys?
Yeah, the sport itself actually has really great enrollment. I know when we did that filming, we had 2 young ladies who came out and we had 3 boys with us. So it is fairly equal when it comes to a junior sport, and it is co-ed. We've always encouraged places to run it as a co-ed program. We think that's very important. So enrollment has been good in that aspect.
Doug? We can't hear you, Doug.
So we were down at Variety Village a few years ago, and Cheryl firsthand, and I have pictures of it, Cheryl, of her in a Volt Hockey. So it is quite something.
Yeah.
And I think I'm glad that it came to the table today for us. Where exactly are the rest of the centers, Audrey?
Yep. So right now, like I said, we have them in Toronto here at Variety. We had a Newmarket location. We have London, Ontario, Niagara Falls. And those are the ones who currently have chairs at their location right now. We've had to bring some of them back to the facility in Variety because these centers are still trying to figure out how they're going to run their programs now that they're returning to play. But Barrie is one of the areas we've seen a lot of interest in the sport. People who've come to Variety for an event who live in that direction, and they're like, it's a little too far for us to be traveling to every day, which is why we're really interested in looking at that area as another location, because it's kind of the section on the map where it's a little empty at the moment.
Had a try day in Barrie, and Brad Bowden, who you all know from Barrie, as a Canadian Paralympic athlete. He's very interested in getting involved in the coaching aspect of it as well. But he came to the try day, and I believe there's 21 children that joined us for that event. So there's lots of interest in Barrie, and you have some great athletes that want to endorse it as well.
So do you have an idea of what you'd like us to do?
Yeah, so I think.
Oh, Cheryl's going to say
yeah,
something.
go ahead.
Sorry, Audrey.
Sorry, before we start going down the road of what the AAC can maybe contribute, we have a staff member here from the Recreation Department, Steve Lee Young, who's actually had conversations already with Variety Village about Volt hockey. So this conversation isn't, just new to Barrie, so Steve has been involved for some time exploring things. So maybe Steve can chime in and bring everybody up to speed on where those conversations might be at. And also remember, we like other municipalities in the province are still not 100% fully functioning, full service from COVID, right? So I just want to make sure that we temper people's expectations. So I know we're all very excited about it, but Steve has a lot on his shoulders. So
if I can, is it all right now? Okay.
That's right. I didn't know who you were.
That's
Please,
okay. Nor should you. I should have introduced myself, I guess, off the top. So no
we
problem at all.
should have all introduced ourselves, I suppose. Sorry.
No problem. Thank you, Cheryl, as well, through Catherine there for the intro. So yeah, just a quick intro. I'm Steve Lee Young, aka Sly, some may know me as, and I'm the manager of recreation and culture programs here with the city of Barrie. I think, as Audrey said it nicely there, before COVID, we were already in preliminary conversations about Volt, and my staff have been having conversations, Jordan Odell, whether it was directly with Audrey or others, maybe predecessors, and then kind of a pause during COVID. So as we're looking to reopen here. So it has, just to give an update then, is our recreation program staff are working with Variety in that respect in regards to the Volt, and we've been looking at opportunities of how we can do it. I think you're totally bang on in your comments there, Audrey, as well, of just like sort of that gap here in Barrie, and we do have some following that's up here. And if they're making the trip to Toronto, then we would love to make it an opportunity that's close by and be able to afford that opportunity here in town at one of our local community centers. So staff have been working through the logistics of storing some of the equipment. I know they've been talking about that, and I think we've worked out some of those, looking at how we can sort of come forward with an agreement or some sort of partnership in regards to the programming. And you're totally right with the try it and generate that interest, and working with Variety already has the network as well, and any other athletes that might be in the area that want to help out coaching, et cetera. Obviously we need to sort of grow that together. So we are excited at that opportunity. It was, I'd love to see the video of Cheryl in it, because I saw the videos online of it, and I think they look pretty neat and pretty exciting for an opportunity to get in there and do that. So, but definitely, as Cheryl said, as we're looking at opening our doors, we're in this kind of interesting time right now of sort of open, not open, and what it looks like. all that for the context of it is something we would like to look at from the city of Barrie's perspective of how we can make that relationship grow, and to on that temperament, like Cheryl was saying, is it's something that we're looking for in like January of hopefully being able to open it up, but have those conversations now with Audrey and Variety to iron out those kinks and see how we can offer that programming at our buildings and see how we can offer it for January. So we are in talks right now, and that's kind of where we're at right now from a recreation and culture programs perspective. If there's anything else you want me to hit there, let me know. But I think that's kind of a quick synopsis there of where we're at right now.
That's great.
Audrey, do a quick one if I can, while I got the floor.
Of course, yeah.
Does it in your other municipalities that are doing it, offering the program, is it predominantly on an arena pad or is it in a gymnasium, or does it matter?
So it would be, I guess, in a gymnasium on a hard surface court.
Okay.
So basketball courts and things like that. There are dividers that kind of set up a mini pop-up hockey rink that kind of is set up in the middle of the court. So they would, any sort of hard surface court would really suffice. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
And no one's had any issues around, like it runs well on the gym floors, like there's no issues with the volt running on there or causing any damage to the volt or the floor. Okay, cool.
They're very thick, wide, almost.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Tires. Yeah, that we haven't had. We've had them running on the Variety courts for a very long time, and there's been no issues of scuffing or anything that's happened on any of the courts that we've seen so far.
Wonderful. Thank you.
We've used the Mondo surface on the floor, the wood court floor. And in Markham, when we ran the Volt summer camps, we used the indoor arena without ice. We were able to use it there. And then in the last summer, we used it at an outdoor tennis court as well. So as Audrey was saying, kind of any hardened surface would actually be a great space for the chair. And there's no markings from the turning, so it's twisting of the wheels.
Thank you.
Carolyn has a question.
And Audrey, are any of the programs run in schools as opposed to a recreation center?
Yeah, it's a really good point, and one that we've been really recently starting to explore in kind of the last month. We haven't run the program through a school board as of yet. That is something that we have looked at, because we're really looking to pair almost, because I've realized a lot of parents, when we've collected information, are still very hesitant to send their kids to these in-person programs for a lot of reasons. Some of them aren't vaccinated yet. So we've been looking at almost virtual alternatives, and we have a couple virtual programs that we're looking to kind of mesh in together with the Volt kids. So school boards isn't something we've explored yet, but as you just mentioned, it's something really interesting that we've been starting to look at. So I think there's potential with getting involved with the school boards, most definitely.
One of the schools we did work with was Sunnyview School. It's a school for students with disabilities in Toronto, and we were part of their physical education classes only. So not as part of a team or anything, but as part of the physical education class. We went there weekly for about 3 months, and then COVID started, so we stopped. And then the Children's Rehabilitation Center, so Hall and Bloorview, has invited us a few times now to use their gym space to introduce the sport to.
Terrific. So as we look at this, I'm thinking, should this come back to a future meeting? Cheryl, your thoughts? Just thinking if we're looking at this, to begin or to start thinking about it in January.
I think this is just a continuation of the conversation, because I think Steve and his group, his staff are already engaged with Variety, and that's awesome. So, I don't think we're at a stage where we're looking for accessibility support in the form of a motion. One thing that I just actually sent a little message to Sly, but maybe I can put it out to Variety. So Archie or Audrey, if we take this on here in Barrie, but there's a gap in our area, it's still going to be a barrier to have community like a team from Barrie travel to Toronto or London to compete. So are you looking to engage other municipalities in our catchment area, like in Simcoe County, or even in like Peel or York, maybe closer areas? I'm just thinking, if we have a really great team that's coached in Barrie and they're really excited and they want to compete, it's still going to be a hardship for some of them to travel like to London, say, for a competition. And then, but at the same time, like after a while, like it sucks playing against yourself. Like you want to so are you expecting or wanting us to do some of that engagement to like bridge some of those connections, or have you done some of that yourself?
So as Steve kind of mentioned, the conversation between Variety and Barrie has been ongoing for some time. So that also gives you an idea of the amount of time and the process it takes to set up a Volt hockey team.
Okay. All right.
So our goal, of course, yes, I would love to, our goal is to kind of look at central pockets so that you have about 3 teams who are playing against each other, kind of like I just mentioned with the Scarborough, the Pan Am Center and Ability Center. Those are all kind of within the same region. So those 3 teams it'd be more easily, they're able to travel against kind of among the 3 of them. So yes, you are completely right. That is our goal, to look at those same areas. It is finding community centers and places that are able to house these teams is the hard part. You'd think it'd be easy, like, hey, I've got these 8 awesome Volt hockey chairs, I literally want to gift them to you, but it's a lot harder than you'd think it really is, especially when the world, as we all know, is figuring out what programming for youth is going to look like. So yes, our goal is to look at that, and obviously any help with doing that is tremendously appreciated. So, within connecting with those other communities and those other towns and municipalities, if you have the conversations that we're having continuously, that's always a great help in us being able to make the Volt community larger. And I have strong ambitions for how I'm looking to grow Volt hockey. We have a really fantastic relationship with MLSE and the Toronto Maple Leafs alumni. I've already spoken with the Leafs alumni. A lot of them live out in that Barrie area. And when we would launch the chairs out there, we would really be looking to make a splash with it, invite all those retired hockey players out and really just, make it as big as we can to draw interest from those other communities. We've also been having conversations with Hockey Canada because they have such a great, youth community network. They would really be able to help us educate about the sport and cause more interest. So I've been trying to strategically think about myself and Archie and the rest of the team, who are these large sports organizations that could just get our message across faster.
Yeah. So that's, thank you so much for that. That's good for me to know. So I think I can certainly help with that. And I think some of the committee members on this committee can help with that as well. And certainly what I can do is once we have if everything comes together and we're able to launch Volt hockey here in Barrie, once all the conversations that need to happen and we have an event, what I can do is I can make sure that I invite my counterparts from our local municipalities, especially I'm thinking Innisfil and Orillia, which are separated municipalities within Simcoe County, similar to Barrie, who have established large established recreation facilities, and also an inherent competitive streak against Barrie. Mm-hmm. So maybe that'll get some juices flowing, and they'll see it and they'll say, hey, if Barrie has that, we want one too, or 8. And maybe, who knows, maybe we can get something going.
Cheryl, we do have some questions. One from Doug and then Heather.
So is there a potential, two things, Archie? Ideally, how many would be on a floor to play against each other? Maybe 10, something like that?
And Audrey was showing earlier that there's typically kind of 3 players on each team
Okay.
on the floor at a time.
So,
And then you have the extra players kind of rotating in and out from time to time.
so basically, we could, if, in a perfect world, create a house league system.
Yes, that's
Right?
what I was thinking.
So we don't just have 8 participants from Barrie traveling all over.
Yeah.
And any sports programs, grassroots, begins at a house league level, whether it's hockey, lacrosse, baseball, it's house league, right? And this is no different. From there, we could, or it could grow into a bit of an all-star team type of thing. That again, we go back to funds being charged for registration to cover some of that traveling. So I mean, it's a distinct possibility. And Cheryl, I agree with you 100%. There you are. That we have a great bunch of people around us through Midland, Aurelia, Bradford. I mean, we have a very good catchment system, and I think it's a great opportunity where, given that all the stars would align, and we don't know what's going to happen one month to the next with this pandemic, unfortunately. So that's just my thought. I think that we could get around it with starting at just a basic, simple house league system.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. I like that. House league is at my heart, so that's good.
Yeah.
Heather.
Yeah, I was just wondering, with the Volt hockey, are there any teams where they mix between those with disabilities and abilities? Obviously, the teams can be mixed abilities within them because the chairs become a leveling factor. But are there opportunities, for example, for siblings from families where there are, some able-bodied and some disabled siblings to be able to play hockey together? Like, is that an option? Have you found that works in your communities, or do we need to keep it segregated? Because I feel like there's a lot of opportunity for some experiences that these kids typically miss out on.
I think it's, our goal, all of us who are here, is inclusion is one of the main ones. And I think by having, everyone of mixed abilities in there together is a fantastic way to market the sport. Like you said, it could be a sibling who plays hockey that's never been able to play with their brother or sister, and this is their opportunity. So I think that's a really big part of our messaging that we've been putting together. And when we're working with these community centers, that's something we always encourage them to use when they're marketing this sport, and we're working with them to market that sport. So I think and I'm sure Archie can add his 2 cents on it and agree, but I think it's a really good way to go about it.
Yeah, a couple of things. It's been exciting. First of all, I'm going to compliment Audrey because it's been great to have Audrey join our team. She's been really great in terms of kind of sharing her enthusiasm and expertise in terms of building up the programs, because we've been getting lots of interest, lots of people participating, but now kind of getting a concentrated, organized effort to bring this out to the community. So Audrey's been incredible to be part of our team, and we're excited to be working with her. On the variety team, we have a group of triplets, and one is able-bodied, and the other 2 have disabilities. And in other sports, they don't typically play hockey together. So Heather, to your point, yeah, it's a great opportunity to kind of set a level playing field where all the kids can play. And the parents of that family often comment and will say, like, typically have to drop off one child here and one child there, and then the other child doesn't play. So Volt has kind of leveled up playing ground where all 3 can play together. And the other piece that's come up quite a bit is for people that use power chair. There's not a lot of power chair sports available. So it's kind of a concentrated effort in this province right now to work with our collective group to build out more power sport opportunities. And Volt is one of those sports that people are saying, well, I didn't really know a lot about it, and I'm excited to learn about it. And the nice thing is that you're transferring from your chair into the Volt chair. So if there's any damage to that chair, it's not your everyday chair. So people appreciate that.
I want to make it clear that I want to turn on these chairs. I've never been able to play hockey, so I definitely want in on that kind of action at some point in my life. I am a power chair user.
If any of you are ever out in Scarborough, you're more than welcome even to just drop by and be like, hey, I want to jump in a vault chair. We'd always be happy to have you guys. We could get a little staff game going. I know everyone here has an inner competitive edge and would love that.
Maybe our committee should take a trip down and
we'd love to have
anybody
you guys
who's up for it, we'll just convene after this meeting and we'll get a team down there. Steve, I see you have a comment or a question.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. Yeah, I was just going to comment to sort of the programming aspect, and as I was saying, as we're working through it, and it does take time, and I appreciate that of developing the program. To the House League comments and all that. So obviously within our City of Barrie rec programs, we're of that grassroots, that all-inclusive programming level. So we would definitely look at that grassroots level, that try-its, like we've referenced here, as many try-its as we can to generate that interest. And then as well, sort of I'll call it a learn to, or a sort of Volt 101 if I can, for conversation, just to generate that interest and have all those, everyone with every ability possible to come out and participate and generate that interest of how to play Volt hockey that way. And then as it grows, and that's where I think, as Doug was saying too, and many others, of just, it then grows to that next level of whatever that House League or that competitive, whatever that is. But definitely that initial front end stage would be where City of Barrie rec programs would generate that interest, that grassroots levels. And I'm guessing, I haven't seen the other Markham or Newmarket's programming, but I would anticipate that it's probably something along those lines. And then we would sort of graduate into a league format if that's the case, or someone, maybe a group comes together to kind of, no different than a Barrie Minor Ball or whatever other sports organizations, then can kind of take it from there as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We've had a really exciting, robust conversation on this. I think we all want to get out and try this for sure. But in the interest of moving forward, I think we probably should. We will, seriously, I think we have some ideas brewing here. We'll run them through Cheryl, if that's okay with you, Cheryl.
I think ultimately, just to kind of put everyone's minds at ease, what I will do is I will stay connected to Steve and his team. Yeah. And then if he has updates for me, then I can provide them to the committee. And if we're at a stage, or when we're at a stage where we need to reconvene everybody to share more substantial information, then we can do that. But just given, timelines and stuff like that, and the fact that you guys don't meet in December, I'm thinking it's going to be a January thing. But I don't see there's any problem with us getting excited about this now and talking about it now with whoever will listen to us, and just having that general interest within our own networks. And then Steve and I will stay connected. And then as he has more information to share, I will share that with you. And certainly if you guys have concerns, you can share them with me and I can pass them along to Steve.
Great.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. We're set.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Audrey and Archie and Steve. And we'll be in touch. Of course we will.
Yes, enjoy your evening. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye, everyone. Okay, so we're moving on to item 1.2, and that is the presentation concerning the Heritage Trail signage project. And we have a presentation here with a wayfinder, and I know I had a look at it.
So that's Wendy Lobenmark is here to talk.
Yeah, Wendy, I thought that you were doing the Meridian Place one. Are you doing both?
Nope, just this one.
Oh, okay. Stephanie is doing the Meridian Place one.
Okay, all right. Wendy, it's over to you.
Over to me. Thank you. And hello again. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Wendy Lobenmark, landscape architectural planner with the Parks Planning team that's in the Development Services Department. So I'm here before you today to talk about the Waterfront Heritage Trail, and some of you may be familiar with this. So although this presentation has been circulated. Why don't I jump into a share screen so that we can speak to the screen together? And let me see if I do this properly. Screen 2, share. Okay, so can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so the Waterfront Heritage Trail is that linear trail that's going around the entire waterfront, and it represents a history of the city of Barrie and collected into 11 interpretive stations. And the way that we are proposing to guide people through this 11 station trail system is to put a wayfinding pillar at each station so that you get a little visual as you move through the system and you know which station that you're at, and you will be able to identify the theme. So we implemented the pillars this summer, and I've had a chance to go out and inspect over the summer, and I'd like to tweak what I initially proposed. I like to do some modifications, but before I go in and invest the money in doing that, I thought I'd ask to come to the Accessibility Advisory Committee and ask for your feedback on mobility access, and maybe take advantage of you a little bit to get some general public feedback on this approach as well. And what it boils down to is that I started by creating a pillar that had a map on it that would always have north facing up. So when we're trying to figure out where we are, often that north facing up helps us, that consistency helps us wherever we're looking at a map. And by placing that north facing up, it dictated which side of the pillar that I would put it on. In this case, the south side, so that you would always be in alignment with the lake itself. So you're geographically, you're on the ground, you see the lake in front of you, or you know what's behind you, and the curve was always to your left, and the big Kempenfeld Bay heading out to Lake Simcoe was always going to be on your right. And then we'd also needed to label that pillar so that you knew which station you're at. So that's fine, that went in. But the stations are all a little bit different in their design, and some of them have more of a lay-by, some don't have any lay-by. The trail is still evolving. We're continuing to place new elements in it. But in this approach specifically, what I'm asking you is, because I've seen these hiccups in some of the locations, and for example, when we go to station number 6, you've got the asphalt walkway right here. You can see clearly the map to say where you are, but when you jump over to station 5, which may or may not be a good example, you've got it adjacent to the asphalt path, but because station 5 is a temporary station until we can divert the trail over to the actual Allendale train station, you can't see the map at all from the walkway. So it actually doesn't function in terms of the map wayfinding. The question is, do we evolve this station even more to make it accessible for people, even though it's temporary? How much money should we invest in it? Because we don't know when we can get into the Allendale train station. That's one question, station 5. And the second question is just wayfinding in general. Would you agree that the priority is to allow people to get up close to that map to be able to read it? And if you do agree that, because as you can see, an example of station 2, this is stone dust pathway, and the pillar is set in the bed itself so that it's easy for maintenance purposes. So you can't get right up to it. And then again, on the right-hand side, we've got station number 9, where we still are practicing that consistent map on the south side, title of the station on the north side, but you can't get in front of that because that's where the bed is and the pathway curves. So if you agree that access to that map is the priority, then here's the implication of doing that. You can come up to the map, and this is a mock-up in station 5, which what it could look like. You put the map on the side that faces the asphalt pathway, and you put the title face on the east and the west sides. So as you're coming and going, you know which station you're coming up to. Here's the implications though, is that you have to actually change the map orientation, the north orientation, to reflect where you're standing, because you're going to turn yourself to look at the map. And every time you do, it changes where the actual bay is on your right or left side. in relation to where you're standing. So it's simple, but it's kind of mind bending when you look at it, because you have to imagine yourself standing in front of that, whichever station it is, as it changes. So the accessibility piece is probably be better if people could get right up to that map, so just for readability. And the general use thing is, am I okay to go ahead and just change the map orientation so that it reflects what you feel on the ground? Will people get that okay? Or should I repeat the north arrow up, even though it doesn't allow you to orient your body to the lake as it actually is on the ground? And that's a hard question to ask you, because we're not standing in front of the actual pillars one by one to put you in that place. And I wonder if I can give you an example. Maybe that would help. Okay, so say here's station 3. Everybody's familiar with the South Shore Center. This is on the west side of the South Shore Center. So let's pretend we're approaching from the parking lot. So this station 3, you could, turf is considered an accessible surface. You could nicely, possibly, if you're in a wheelchair, come here and look at the map. You're not getting right up to it because we have the barrier of the bricks. But I could put this map on the other side where the lay-by is, which would get everybody closer. And then I could switch this out and this could be a title piece. Then if I'm standing looking at it or sitting in a chair looking at it, my back is now to the lake and Centennial Park is on my right-hand side. Okay, so if you imagine that, Centennial Park is on my right-hand side. If I go back up to, it would be on the north side. This is the map that you would use. Centennial Park is on my right-hand side. So it intuitively works when you're standing in place and you're looking at the picture of the map and you're looking at, you know where you are on the ground. It's hard to see when you're talking about it in a presentation. Would it be helpful if I ran through another example, like Station 7, which is in Centennial Park?
I just have a question on Station 3. Could you not move the pillar over to the other end of that lay-by beside the other explanation sign and still keep it facing north?
So that's a good point. And what we find is that the interpretive signage itself is placed, and in this case, it's an aerial view. So it has to be placed right there in order so that you're also standing and you relate to the aerial of the former Allendale Station lands when you're sitting there. So the interpretation itself dictated to me that I couldn't place the post there. I had to place it on the other side. So it was always a question about priorities. Each station was looking at priorities of what's the interpretive piece versus where's the opportunity to place that pillar, as well as how do we keep it easy to maintain and avoid. Like in this situation, I don't know if you remember the ice fishing festivals. They actually have trucks that drive down this lane, and the first year I put it in, they drove over my lay-by. So that's why we have rocks. We're trying to create barriers. There's a few things that have happened over the years. And this extends over to Station 10, which is really not bad, but to Station 11, which is the last station at the end of the road. This is Penetang-Washeen Road against the city limits. You come the east-west along the North Shore Trail, and then you turn left and up you go, up Penetang-Washeen Road. And again, I really want to take that map and put it on the west-facing side of that pillar so people can access it and put a title on the side that we do see. But I'll have to orient again to the lake. If you're facing east, looking at that map, now Centennial Beach is at my back. So I would twist that north arrow on my west face to have the beach at my back, and note the north arrow is to my left. And what's the alternative? You could leave that north map on all of them, but it doesn't relate to where you are on the ground. And that's generally a key rule of wayfinding, is to always have your map related to where you are on the ground. So maybe we could have a little bit of discussion about that. I'd also would love to just put it out there that I haven't done any costing at it, but if I was to be able to invest in changing this up a little bit, I'd like to investigate costing to see if we could alter that map to maybe do some raised tactile services on it to get the outline, and then each station along it. We don't have anything tactile yet along the waterfront, and it might be an opportunity to do that. And I don't want to make any promises, but I would love to do something like that as well. Would it be helpful?
I would love it if you did that. So you've got my vote if you do that.
What are the
Carolyn?
All right. That's very interesting, Wendy. Thank you very much. The map is consistent in all 11 stations, correct?
Correct.
So to my mind, being very simplistic, the map should be the same everywhere. So if it's facing north in 1, it should be the same in 5 and 9 and 11, because the important information is what each of the stations tell you about the area. So to me, the map is interesting, it orients me, and a lot of people don't, in my mind, don't worry about whether it's north or south or whatever. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Thank you.
Other comments? Louise? You're on mute, Louise. You're on mute. Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay.
There we go.
I just think the access is really important. So that myself, I can, read it even with my glasses, or I can get to it in terms if I was in a wheelchair or even a scooter or something like that. So, and it's amazing number of people that you do see on the trail that sometimes are in scooters and things like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think, continuity is important, especially with somebody with any sort of limited vision or accessibility issues whatsoever. It should be the same all the way through, so that even if they can't see it for whatever reason, they can understand that it should be the same as the last station as far as continuity is concerned.
Thank you.
Heather?
I think I agree the continuity is more important than the continuity and location are more important than its orientation. I think those, because the waterfront is a very, there's a lot of geographical difference to it. I think it's fairly easy to make sense of this is here and, here's where I am, because you've got that you are here sign on it, and then work out where that puts you around the lake. So I would agree with those thoughts. And I think the real challenge is making sure that it is accessible to everyone. So I really, really like the idea of being able to introduce some tactile to it, but that absolutely requires that it be as close to the path as possible. And so I think that just reinforces that, and the consistency that's needed there just reinforces that. But, if we could have something, even part of it in Braille, something with tactile elements, even that would be phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, but you do need to be up close to be able to touch it. Marie, any comments?
There we go. Not really. I was going to chime in earlier, but you got the idea of moving the pillar, which I understand now is not possible. Although the one in the that's sort of in the shrubbery.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Station 2.
Yeah. Especially if it was to go tactile, I think it would need to be not in the shrubs. Because then
even
you'd
if
get
it could
people
just be moved
standing in
out,
the
right?
shrubs or not able to get to it at all.
Good comments. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think there was another one no, I think I got it. I'm good.
And Councillor Thompson, do you have any comments on this? I know it's hard for you because you're not looking at anything except driving, I'm sure.
Sorry about that. I am actually looking at it. No, I'm just observing the information. Yeah, I'm actually pulled over, but thanks. But yeah, I have no comments at this time.
Okay, thank you. Does that give you a sense of what we're looking for, Wendy, or what we're thinking?
Well, I'm kind of hearing arguments for both approaches. So in terms of which one rises to the top as the priority, we have good arguments on either side and actually more support for the consistency than I maybe expected. So that's very interesting. I'm not sure what to take away because you guys kind of mirrored my thought process too, and arguments for both sides.
I think we do have more thoughts on consistency. I think that we would agree.
Generally, consistency seems to be the priority, but encouragement to look for a way to bring in that tactile element.
That's right. If we can bring things a little closer so that they can be actually touched and reached.
Okay, you have set me my design challenge. Sorry, you had another one?
Marie?
Comment?
Just another thought. I think there were a couple that were sort of out on the grass, which would be an issue in winter for tactile access. Because even if like in a chair, if I could go out to it on the grass in summertime, as soon as you get snow, there's absolutely no way that's ever going to happen.
Yeah, and you're speaking to there's Station 1 and Station 5 currently, which are in the grass. Station 1 is still under development. We're proposing to implement a pathway there. Station 5 is that temporary one, and I'd be happy to receive any comments from the group on should we put in a temporary pathway there, or should we really consider it temporary and just not invest in that area, knowing that we are going to be moving it to Allendale Station Park?
Cheryl?
Wendy, what would be helpful for you? Do you need a motion from this committee, or can they actively provide you feedback by email? What would you prefer?
I'm happy to receive feedback by email. A motion.
Are you there yet, or do you want to maybe put that, like, put a pin in that and maybe come back to us if you need something?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind trying to get the trail completed, and then this might be a refinement because it does have a budget implication to it.
Absolutely, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Okay.
Unless this is considered something of a public urgency, because there is a little bit of slope up. If for those of you who are familiar with the pathway and that element, it's not necessarily, it's not level. It's not the easiest. You got to go up a little bit to get onto that grassy knoll at Station 5. So I actually had a resident comment to me while I was out inspecting Station 5. And, that's really what bubbled up the concern for me, you know, maybe we should be doing a little more, how much more, what is temporarily appropriate, and what, you know, if you're gonna, things happen, you make a project that might be temporary and ends up staying quite a bit of time sometimes, when you don't have a deadline or a firm date, when you know that you can move
Yeah.
it to permanent. So
I think the slope though at that location is within our minimum maintenance requirements for accessibility.
Okay.
So I think if you want to encapsulate reconstruction, like addressing like the slope to improve the accessibility, that's certainly something that that we would totally support. But you might want to package it with other improvements that you want to make along the trail, so that it's not just a one-off, if that makes any sense.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Wendy, I just see Carolyn has a question.
Sorry.
Yes, thank you, Catherine. Wendy, in my opinion, you should just leave number 5 the way it is. It's a work in motion. It's going to change, and rather than invest money into something that is not firmed up, I prefer see the money go to something else. So that would be my opinion, is to, it's what you have works. It's not ideal, but then you don't know what's going to happen with the station anyway.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
So just yeah, I just want to make sure I get Wendy what she needs. So I think there's a number of people on this committee who have great ideas and feedback that they can get you. So do you have any timeline that you're wanting this by, or?
Yeah, so we'd like to move on it as quickly as possible because it's a key element.
Yeah.
If we could have something in the minutes to say that we discussed this, and generally where the consensus went and the recommendations back to park planning went, and that I'm welcome to come back and consult with you again once the things are a little more evolved. That would be great, just to have something solidified in the minutes for me.
So,
Comments welcome as well, though, on the side to me directly and at any time.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. So
that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, so we'll make sure that when that Tammy has that in the minutes. I'm going to send an email out to you all right now that has Wendy's email address in it, so that you can communicate with her directly with your comments and stuff like that. Probably what's going to happen is everybody's going to rush down to Heritage Trail to check it out in person. And then you're going to get some real life comments, Wendy.
Yeah.
So yeah. you just wait.
Yeah. And it's a great time of year for trail experiences.
Oh my goodness.
Now.
I'm actually doing the run down there on Sunday, so I will stop at every one and have a look. I don't care about my time.
Fantastic.
I'm not going to run fast.
Fantastic.
I'll look at them all.
Thank you.
Report back.
Thank you.
Back. Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Wendy.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move on. We don't have our pickleball person here yet, right? Is that correct, Cheryl? No. So why don't we move on to item 2.1, discussion regarding the pop-up maze at Meridian's Place.
Okay, great. I'm just going to, I just have a couple. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me today. I'm really excited about this opportunity to talk to you and to get some information. So I was kind of last minute with my my props here. I'm going to share my screen. So hopefully this will work here. Just bear with me for a second. Here, let me make that smaller there. There we go. And then I can share that one. Okay, that should do it. So just let me, there we go. Okay, thank you. So the idea, so what's happening here is right now, Game On is happening in Barrie. So it's a gaming event for all ages where you can relive the nostalgia of retro video games and go head to head in a video game tournament, learn about esports, game development. And this is a virtual event going on right now until the 18th, and it's in partnership with the Barrie Public Library Comic-Con. So it features a ton of fun activities for the family that's safely enjoyed through the website as part of the City of Barrie Culture and Festival events. So they've done a murder mystery escape room, a bunch of videos promoting various gaming things. I'm not much of a gamer myself, but they do have a lot of interesting things going on. One thing we are promoting is the Biba Playground app. There's augmented reality playgrounds around that. There's 4 of them. You can use this app on any playground, but we actually have 4 that have been installed for a while that not too many people know about, that you can, you know, people who are very used to having a phone, it gets them out there, the parents control the phone and the kids can kind of use the phone to help play games at the playground. Anyhow,
We can't hear you.
oh, you can't hear me.
No, she's frozen.
Stephanie, something's going on with your sound. I apologize for all the barking that you may hear from my sound, but that we can't hear you, Stephanie, and your screen's kind of lost.
Lost her?
Yeah, I think we lost her.
Oh,
there she
There
is.
she is. Hi,
Sorry
Stephanie,
about that,
we lost you.
Yeah, you did lose me. Sorry. I realized normally when I do a presentation, I'm hardwired in, and I neglected to do that today. So I apologize. Maybe I'll keep my screen off for now just to help with that. And maybe I can just continue on just without the slides. I could maybe share something later on if that'll help, but I'm not sure where I cut off, but essentially on September 18th, Game On is it's their final day, and working with the culture department, we were brainstorming, and we were thinking this would be a great opportunity to do a true pop-up, and we were thinking Open Air Dunlop is finished for the year, and they have this, there's not much going on there as we know of. Why don't we try doing a true pop-up by installing this maze? So what it would be is made out of a white talc powder, and I'd use this, I'd actually be installing it by using a grid pattern with points measured out, and using this field marker, which is a machine they use to line the infields at a baseball game. So if you can picture a baseball game with the white lines running out along the edge of the foul to, you know, indicate the infield, it would drop the talc down to create the maze. So it's temporary, it doesn't stain, it's not permanent. As soon as the rain, so honestly, if the 18th is rainy, this is not going to happen because it just won't really work. But it's very quick to install, and I was looking at various areas of Meridian to do it in, but really what seemed to be the best option would be the space in front of the stage and the staircase going down. So it has about a kind of on the short between the stage and the stairs is kind of my limit. And that's about 12 meters there that I can work with. And that's important because it helps delineate the spaces of the lines, because this is very much working with the grid pattern and copying the lines with the point. It's like connect the dots, essentially, that you connect the dots, that it allows me to lay out the lines at a proper spacing for the maze to actually fit and work in that area. So, and it's also flat there, and that's like, you know, there, everything is accessible to a point that, you know, the slope is acceptable. But I still think that that's the flattest spot and probably the most impactful because of where you stand, for people to look at it down from the top of the at the Memorial Square section of it. So I guess, you know, I did do a practice run at Operations Center. It did turn out all right. I really did it quickly, and I didn't, you know, execute it as nicely as I could have. But I really just wanted to get a sense if this would actually work as a pop-up. So, and it did. I think it'll do its job for what it's supposed to be. And, you know, the reason why we're wanting to, and to explain the true pop-up sense is that this is not going to be advertised. No one's going to know that it's me out there at 7 in the morning putting this maze out there, unless they're there. And it's not meant to be promoted in any sense, like for no gathering purposes. So of course, working with culture, it's very important that we're COVID safe. It's a passive activity, so that falls under, you know, it's just like what's been happening at open air all summer, in the sense that, you know, it's not advertised. Well, this is not advertised, that we're not saying, okay, groups of people come in at this time to do it. People
I mean,
are.
I'm just gonna interrupt you just right quick here.
Yes.
Because I think this is awesome, and I'm really excited for you. But I think people need a visual. So Tammy has your presentation. Tammy, can you share your screen?
Thank you.
Wendy, I think Wendy, because Wendy brought it to my attention, and I was like, yes, Tammy has her presentation. So if Tammy, could you screen share so that everyone could see? If not, Wendy has offered to do it too.
It's the same one that went around, that was sent out.
Yeah, I'm just trying to
sent out, so everybody should have it.
Yeah.
Let me just see if I can find it first.
Okay.
I apologize again. Sorry. Usually I try to have my technology on point, but
it's the 2021 thing, right? It's you're still on mute, and tech problems. We're all living through it.
Boy, I'm not finding it.
Okay.
Maybe I could just try to start, you know, maybe I can just try to share the picture.
Okay, maybe try.
I think Carolyn had something to say.
Yeah. Tammy, it was in the email you sent out to everybody this afternoon.
Yeah. Let me just see if I can.
So if you check one of our names, and the attachment is there. Does that help?
Yeah.
Or Wendy might have it. No, okay, then I'll see. I'm gonna see. I wasn't sure if it got sent.
I had it.
Stephanie could send it to me. I could pop it up for you guys.
Oh, here, I got it.
Got it? Or
I do here.
Okay.
So I just gotta, I don't know if I have the ability. See, this is the thing, is I don't know if I have the ability to share my screen, because can I do this? I can do
even
this.
if you're the presenter, if you're the host. Yeah.
So I'm not the host though.
Oh.
No, but you have sharing ability.
I do? Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Then we're gonna try this. Okay.
I just sent it to you, and
okay. I'm trying. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Can you see that?
Yes, that's great.
Okay,
Thank you,
yay.
Cheryl.
Okay, so Stephanie, tell me where to go.
Go to the very end there.
There we go.
There we
Okay,
go.
At the operations center. Perfect. Okay.
Yeah. So you could see while I was doing it, people were using the wash bay. So it was a good, experience to get that water rushing through as I was dropping the talc down.
So now you know what's going to happen if it rains. Yeah.
Well, and that was important to do a test run, for the concrete. I don't want to put something down that's going to wreck it or anything like that. So it was important for me to have an idea for the look. So it is a bit messy. And I think that's going to be the point of it. There's been chalk drawings down there all summer. Yep. So I feel like I'm not going to be, too far out in the field with this one. But so essentially, the reason why I'm coming here today, and I feel like this is the start of something that, as we try to open and expand our activations in parks, that, this is a good start for me to get to know this group better and to, start opening that dialogue and making sure that, I'm getting all the voices I need, the input. And so, from what I understand, so with this, when it comes to this maze itself, the way I can make it more accessible is by altering the size of the opening, like the space where you walk in between or wheel in between. Because this is a chalk, it won't matter that you cut corners, if you have to round a corner. But I do want to make sure that I do have enough space that it's not, obviously people don't want to get their chairs messy and things like that either, to try to minimize it. It's not gonna, you're gonna get some mess because it's chalk and it's not flat like it does. It's almost like icing sugar or something like that. So it's gonna move a little bit. I do understand, and I am, aware of the fact that, there's no tactile, it's purely visual. I have seen other mazes done in a way, using other items like, plants, like sunflowers or raised caution tape that people would be able to, actually handle. So I guess this is where I just want to hear your comments, any suggestions, anywhere I could find some more information to help in future pop-ups, maybe like this. So really, I just would love to hear what you have to say about it and what I could do to make it more accessible. Thank you.
Doug?
Yeah, I think anything like this is a great start to get everybody involved and it does in a, maybe you're not cognizant of it at the time, but it is promoting inclusion because anybody and everybody can access and use this, right? And I think it's amazing. I think this should be a start of many things, to be honest with you. And the good weather.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that.
Heather?
Yeah, just in terms of the spacing question, Stephanie, there's a wonderful labyrinth on the playground at Codrington School that I have enjoyed when school was out and it was summer in my power wheelchair. And it's very tiny, but so it's nowhere near big enough for my chair, but it's still very easy to go around that. I think the bigger concern in terms of following the maze with wheelchairs is just going to be how much the wheelchair wheels change the shape of where the chalk is. So that's going to be your bigger issue, but that's going to happen regardless of whether wheelchairs use it or whether 6-year-old boys use it. I think it's fairly safe to say that will be the biggest challenge of that of the chalk. But if you're looking for a width suggestion for a standard power chair or a standard manual chair, most of our bases are about 24 inches. And so if you had a 30-inch space, then you would more than adequately accommodate for a chair if that works in your spacing. And if not, you know that 24 inches is sort of your go-to for a future project, at least.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
That's handy. Marie?
I'd go even a tiny bit wider because manual chairs tend to be wider because the wheels go on the outside, and particularly just to help with not wrecking your corners so much. But I agree. I think it sounds fun. I think my son would love that, and I'd like to go check it out myself.
How many are you going to do these? Like are you going to do these? Like you mentioned, you've got this one going on. You'd like to do more. Like, do you have like a ballpark idea in your head how many you'd like to do?
Well, this is very much a baby step. I'm just doing one maze, the one day, and that's it for now. But with that being said, you know, thinking in the future about how we can, you know, continue to activate our parks, certainly there's all sorts of things that could be done that are passive. And I feel like this is it's easy to do. Like, I think that's part of it is, you know, make it simple, easy, very accessible, and just, you know, quick. Like it's not meant to be a long lasting thing. And I think there's some beauty in that, and the people who discover it, you know, have that moment to enjoy it, and then that's it. So I think really, you know, for now, this is kind of our toe in the water with it. And we'll just see what happens from it and kind of use this as a learning experience, and go from there.
Okay, Carolyn, did you have a comment?
I do, please. Stephanie, I think it's very accessible to all ages because you can get toddlers going through it, you can get grandparents. So I think it's a wonderful idea because it encompasses the whole population. So kudos to you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's going to be neat. Okay. Now I suppose we move on to 2.2. We did have a message or a series of messages from a community member, Doug Shaw, I believe.
Yeah.
And was he going to be joining us today?
I thought, Wendy was waving.
He is here.
Oh, hi, Wendy.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, Wendy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks so much, Wendy.
Thanks,
Thank
Stephanie.
you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Stephanie.
Thank you.
You're
Bye.
welcome to stay, but you don't have to. So is Doug here? Doug Shaw's here? Fantastic. Yes. So Doug reached out to his counselor, Sergio Morales, Councilor Morales, who used to be a member of one of our previous accessibility advisory committees. He was a council member for this committee. And so he was familiar with the fact that the accessibility advisory committee has advocated in the past. And so Doug had an experience in a plaza. We've looked into it from a legislative perspective, as well as with our building code and stuff. And it's an older facility, it's an older plaza. So even though it's not perfectly accessible right now, it's within all the rules and regulations. However, we kind of want to ask the property owner to make some changes. So I'll let Doug chime in. Doug, if you're interested in saying hello to everybody and sharing your concern, that would be fantastic. Welcome.
You are on mute, Doug.
Okay.
There we go.
Very good.
Hello.
Yes, well, first of all, I'd like to thank Cheryl, Catherine, and Tammy, who've been emailing me and helping me along. And the fact that there is an accessibility advisory committee, which I had no idea. I had just finished 15 weeks of physio at a place called PT Health here in Barrie, and it's a fantastic place, and I wanted to show my appreciation. So I decided I'd like to order something from Edible Arrangements, which is located in this strip mall. However, I've got problems getting up and down any type of steps. So I called the night before and I was reassured that I would not have any problem. They simply put their order on a table in front of the door. I just open the door up and I take the order off and off I go. So everything sounded great. The next morning I drove up and parked in front of the door, but what was facing me was a walkway. And the walkway was about, I'd say 8-10 inches high. And there's no way I'm getting up that walkway. I can see the door. There's only about 3 steps to the door, but I can't get to it. So I called the store and I talked to a gentleman on the phone and I asked him if he could bring the order and put it in my car. You're only 3 steps away. And he said, no, he couldn't do that. My order was waiting for me on the table and I just have to come and get it. And I said, but I can't get up the step. And he said, well, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do for you. So we were kind of at a stalemate. So I'm sitting in my car wondering what to do. And I decided I would drive my car right up to the walkway, get out of the car and see if I could manage to get up and down that step by holding onto the roof of my car. Meanwhile, I'm looking all the way down the pathway to see if there was any area that was flush with the pavement that I could walk over to and get up easily, but I couldn't see anything. I was really kind of scared to take this step, and I saw a couple of young kids walking across the parkway. I yelled over to them if they could come over to my car with the idea that I would ask them to go and get my order for me. And while I was doing that, I don't know what was happening inside Edible Arrangements, but a nice young lady came out with my order and put it in the car for me. So the very next day, I drove back to the strip mall to see if there was any place along that walkway that was flush that I could have gotten up. Now this one is, maybe some of you know, there's Popeyes at one end and Edible Arrangements at the other. And if you go to the Popeye side, they do have a nice flush area and actually have handicap parking, which is beautiful. But at the Edible Arrangement side, they don't have anything. And you cannot see, if you drive into Edible Arrangements, what was going on at Popeyes. You wouldn't be able to see that. Even coming in from Dunlop, you can't see it. So you don't know that that exists. And quite frankly, it's a long walk. Even if I managed to get up there, to walk all the way to Edible Arrangements, take my order and walk all the way back to Popeyes, it would have been quite tiring. So what I was asking, I had no idea. Accessibility is relatively new for me, where to go. So I started with Sergio and he put me on to Cheryl, Catherine, and Tammy. And I'd like to see the same thing that they have at Popeyes put on at Edible Arrangements for anybody in the future who has to go to this mall.
Thanks so much, Doug.
Thanks for listening.
So what I suggested to Doug was that there are 2 concerns for me here. And the first concern is accessible customer service. And then the second concern is the lack of access. So even though that might seem like the first concern, I think it's actually the second concern. So because honestly, like that store manager should have done so much more to help Doug out in that moment. So as you know, Catherine, we had a discussion with this committee last Christmas about the Shoppers Drug Mart on Yonge at 649 Yonge Street. And I wrote a letter on behalf of this committee. And this committee first agreed to it. And then I wrote a letter on behalf of this committee in support of a community request to have curb depression in a similar situation where everything's to code. The business when they developed and they established, they had their one curb depression at the entrance of that one business, and then many years later, as development occurs and other businesses come along, there's no access to those businesses. So that proprietor was doing renovations and got our letter and said, oh my goodness, this is very timely, we can do this. And so they're actually doing that. They're putting a curb depression in. So I don't know if we'll be that successful in this case, but I certainly would like to try. But in addition, I would also like to suggest that we, on behalf of this committee, on behalf of Doug, we write a letter to Edible Arrangements about accessible customer service, because they, like the municipality, have compliance requirements related to the AODA if they are doing business in this province. And I think that it's good feedback for them to know that they may lose not just one customer, but many customers, because anyone hearing this story, I think, would be horrified and not want to go experience that service. So I'll leave that to you to discuss and decide. But if you're interested, I will support that and create that letter for your guys' endorsement.
Well, thank you, Cheryl. Doug?
Yes.
Oh, the other.
Sorry.
So
Our Doug.
I'm just about ready to get on a rant with this one. I think whether it's accessible customer service or just customer service, it is pretty pathetic service is what it is.
That's it.
And there's things that we can do as far as TripAdvisor that will rate that store's customer service very easily. And that may rectify some of the problems with the customer service. I agree with what you're saying as far as the age of the plaza and certain things that can and can't be done, Cheryl. I think that those are things that as a letter we could put together, but customer service aside, the one thing that you caught me off guard with was sort of with Shoppers Drug Mart. I have had a bone of contention in my craw for years with Shoppers Drug Mart, particularly the one, yes? Paul?
Sorry, let's not get on a soapbox about Shoppers Drug Mart at this point in time.
Accessible.
No, I just want to make sure that we address Doug's concern, Doug Shaw's concern, because, and then we can come to your stuff after if we have time, because we actually have someone coming else, another presentation about pickleball coming at exactly at 5:30.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I want to make sure that we have time
Fair
for that.
enough.
So I appreciate your concerns, Doug, but let's deal with Doug Shaw first, and then we'll come back to you.
Sure.
And I know Louise has something she'd like to say. Louise?
Oh, it's just that I use that particular mall. There's a flower shop in there, and also there's a Rexall, a very small Rexall drugstore, and they have a lot of policies about customer service and accessibility. So the flower shop will actually bring things out to me. So a very different attitude, because I agree it's a very high step up, and I can't do it either.
Okay.
Thank you.
Carolyn.
Thank you, Catherine. I think it is sufficient to send a letter to that particular Edible Arrangements on behalf of the committee. However, I do not feel it's important. I do not feel we should make any other comments anywhere, because it is third-party information that we're getting. Excuse me, Doug Shaw.
Sure.
So I think a letter from the committee should suffice, expressing disappointment at the poor customer service, but acknowledgement of the lady who subsequently came out, Doug, to help you. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Carolyn. I would add to that letter, yes, thank you to the person who did bring out your order, but also from our perspective, from our letter, it should contain a reminder about the AODA requirements, because, you know, they've got to make some sort of accommodation, and just saying that they won't. It's customer service. Yes, it's poor customer service, but it's also a lack of education, perhaps. I don't know, but it needs to be brought to their attention. My perspective, sorry. That's my rant. There you go. Anyone else?
If I could just ask a question. Through the legislation of the AODA, is there a minimum, or can we actually force herb depressions? Now, I know businesses to have a license in Barrie have to have a plan, and they have to submit it and meet all the stages throughout it to keep their business license. But I was just curious, can we only suggest a curb play, or is it actually, can we actually force businesses?
We can't force businesses. So like if there is something like if there was something in disrepair that was unsafe, then we could. But the integrity of the concrete is perfect. I drove by there too, actually, after getting Doug's email. But it's related to the building code, Councillor Thompson, and the AODA and the building code in this instance. There's no retroactive requirement, so it's only for large renovation, planned renovation. So it kind of really sours things because what it does is it dates development. And so if you have a development that is, you know, 15 to 20 years old, which that plaza fits, then it's going to have some accessibility, but it's going to be limited, and it's not going to be well thought out. So now for site plan, like if that development came up through site plan, our planners would flag it, because they have a curb depression, but what they would do is they would flag it because there isn't good circulation. There isn't accessible circulation throughout the entire concrete like sidewalk. What we're hoping to do is for businesses that exist in these areas is connect with the property owner to say, this is a concern and this is why this is a concern. And Louise brought up the pharmacy, and that's actually a really good, that actually might be the fact that they are tenants in that plaza might actually help this ask, might give it more weight, because there are a lot of seniors who use that pharmacy. So unfortunately we can't force them, but we have had good success with some developers, or not developers, pardon me, property owners. And so I can't promise that they'll be super receptive and able to do anything here, but I can certainly hope.
So the long and the short of it.
I know it takes me a long time to say no, doesn't it? Doesn't it, Councillor? Yes, I'm sorry.
No, but it's we can inform and encourage, but there's nothing that in the building code that we can force the new standards, or
only for new development.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, so Cheryl, we're going to have is that 2 letters now? We'll have one.
So we'll do 2 letters. I will circulate them to everybody. Doug Shaw, you will see them too, and that'll be good. I'm noticing the time, and I see that Kim has joined us. So I also just want to make a promise to Doug Taylor. I'll call you, and you can give me an earful about Shoppers Drug Mart offline, and we'll see what we can do about that too.
That sounds good. Thanks,
Okay.
Cheryl.
All right.
Okay. Thank you, Doug Shaw.
Thank you.
We appreciate your comments, and now you know what's going to be happening from our perspective.
And Doug, you're welcome to stay, but you don't have to.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Doug. Okay, so now we're getting to the Barrie Pickleball Association regarding increased accessibility to the courts, and this is exciting for me. I'm a pickleball player, so this is good. Welcome, Kim Porter. And Kim, you are the, are you actually the president of the, I don't even know if there is a president. I just know of the Pickleball Club. You're on mute, Kim. Sorry.
There we go.
There,
I think
hi.
I should be good now. So hello, everybody, and thank you so much for making space for me in the meeting today. I understand it was quite packed, so this happened at very short notice, so it's much appreciated. So yes, I guess reluctantly, I am the president of the Barrie Pickleball Club, and it's only because of a grant application that we had to name a president that I am in that role. It wasn't anything that I went looking for, but it sort of happened by circumstance. So yeah, would you like me to continue? And
yes, please do.
Okay. So my reason for asking to connect with this committee is because there is a motion that is with staff at the moment who are conducting a feasibility study on a motion to create more pickleball courts. I believe specifically it's between 12 to 14 courts. And I'm not sure that the motion itself mentions accessible courts, but we as a pickleball organization feel that we should be addressing that, and that we should be ensuring that there is at least an option for players who require accessible courts. So we've been asked by the staff member who is conducting the research on this feasibility study, how many accessible courts we think the city of Barrie requires. So we're looking for some feedback. Well, I honestly haven't seen a lot of wheelchair users on the courts, and so the difference would be in sizing. Just to clarify, there's sort of a minimum recommended size of court with perimeter fencing, and then there's a preferred, and then there's an accessible standard. And that accessible standard is to allow for wheelchair movement between the court lines and any perimeter fencing, essentially. So I'm hoping to get a little bit of input from the committee on their thoughts regarding how many courts we should be asking the city to consider building as in the accessible format, and also looking for potentially some sort of a long-term partnership where we can encourage those from the community to join pickleball, because it's a great sport that's played. You can actually play both. So I don't know how much the committee members know, but you can actually have a court of doubles with 4 wheelchair players. You could have a court of doubles with 1 wheelchair player and 3 able-bodied athletes. So it's all over the map. And then of course, it can be played by athletes in wheelchairs in a singles format, 1 against 1. So it's anything goes, which is I think a beautiful thing with this sport.
Agreed. Cheryl.
Yeah, I actually I had 2 questions, but Kim, I think you answered my one question. My one question was, can people in wheelchairs play on the same court as people not in wheelchairs? So that's awesome.
Yes.
So my second question is, because I don't know, and I apologize because I'm a crocheter and a knitter. That's my athletic ability. So I don't know about all this sport, but we do have a lot of sporty people on this call though. So I don't know, and I apologize if I should know, how many accessible pickleball courts do we have in the city right now? Do we have any?
We do not. So we
Okay.
only have 2 dedicated pickleball courts, and they are built to the minimum standard. So it's actually tight with the fencing being so close to the court lines for able-bodied people without the wheelchair to navigate that small space sometimes. So that's, I think, part and parcel why we're having this conversation.
Yeah,
So let's look at what we can do for the future.
Perfect. Okay, then you came to the right spot. That's awesome. Thank you for initiating this conversation with us.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So just to add to that, the city is currently building 2 additional dedicated courts. It's halfway through the construction process, but again, they're built to the same sizing standards as the existing 2 courts. There are a couple of courts without the acrylic surface. So by the acrylic surface, I mean, when you see tennis courts that have the nicely painted colors on them, that's an acrylic surface. It seals all the holes. It eliminates any bumps and lumps that would come from an asphalt surface. So there are a number of asphalt surfaced courts that don't have the same sizing restrictions as the courts here do, but it's not, the quality of the court surface is not as good. So we would be looking to ask the city to build accessible courts on a high quality acrylic surface.
Heather?
So what are the cost differences in terms of the accessible courts to the non-accessible courts? Is it a major cost difference? Is it minor? What are we talking about here?
And I don't have the answers to that. I can tell you that I have been told by city management that the costs of the 2 new courts that are being constructed right now is estimated to be about $75,000. The sizing difference for an accessible court is considerable, but how that would increase the cost, I don't know, because they're not, I mean, my assumption would be that if they're building, so we have asked the city to consider building a quote unquote pickleball center where there's a social aspect to this sport, which is a little bit different from tennis, whereby everybody sort of mixes and mingles. So we would assume that if the city is building this pickleball center and are building multiple courts already, the cost factor to increase the size of 1 or 2 of those courts to make them to accessible standards would not be the same as if they were starting an accessible court from scratch. Does that make sense?
Can you, sorry to interrupt, Heather and Kim, which staff member were you speaking to?
Kevin Bradley.
Oh, fabulous. Kevin Bradley and I are great friends. Well,
he's lovely.
I say that just because he's a great friend of the committee here. He's come to this committee several times. That's okay,
Cheryl,
cool.
I do see that Councillor Thompson has his hand up.
I just wanted, that's all I wanted to.
Okay.
Thank you. I didn't know if Heather was finished or she had a follow-up question. So I can wait if she's not.
I was just going to say that if the cost isn't substantially different, then surely it makes sense to build them accessibly from the beginning, and then everyone can enjoy them, as opposed to, not like, sometimes it's a false economy not to just do that if we're building them anyways. But if we don't have that information, it's a little bit harder to know what to suggest.
Yeah, and it may become more of an issue of space than cost.
Right. I might chime in just a little bit in support of this, and perhaps encouraging accessible courts, because pickleball has grown exponentially over the past, I'm going to say 5 years, but even the last 2 years since COVID. Am I right, Kim?
Absolutely.
It's just, it has exploded. And we're seeing all different kinds of shapes and sizes of people playing, ages. It doesn't really, it's a very inclusive sport. And as Kim says, you know, you can get out there and play in a wheelchair, you can get out there and just have fun. It's not, unless you're getting into the competition, you're not, it's not a hugely competitive sport. I mean, we're all competitive, but it's not hugely competitive. It's really for fun and for social interaction and exercise and fitness. So I see a big opportunity to have the courts created with accessibility in mind.
Well, now that we know that Kevin is involved, we can loop him into the conversation if he hasn't already thought about it, because that's, you know, I think that's an easy kind of planting the seed kind of thing. But I think Councillor Thompson had some questions.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh,
Kim,
okay.
you were saying that the size of the accessible courts is to allow the mobility of like people in chairs and stuff. The actual court size.
Sorry, you cut out a little bit there. Are you asking the dimensions of the actual court?
No, what I was saying is it sounds like the court needs to have like basically a ribbon around it to facilitate anybody with mobility issues like in a chair, but the actual playing surface remains the same size. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes. Yes. We're talking about the perimeter around and beyond the court itself.
Right. Now, I know that the cost of the acrylic is the expensive part, but it's much better for knees and longevity and all that. It's a much better course. And, you know, to Catherine's statement, I know pickleball is, you know, blowing up. It's everywhere now. And that's why the pavilion and you guys want a gazebo and stuff, because the average pickleball player spends 4 hours at the court, where an average tennis player is about an hour. But what I was thinking is to mitigate some of the cost is if the court remained in the acrylic, but the outer apron to facilitate just remained in an asphalt surface where the fencing can go. So kind of like the acrylic, you know, where you see a lot of tennis courts where they don't acrylic all of the surface, and the acrylic is actually placed over an asphalt base. So that would allow, you know, the surfaces to meet. There would be no lip, no joint, which would allow the accessibility, but it would mitigate a lot of the cost instead of increasing the acrylic all the way around. And it actually gives a really, like, it accents the court opposed to it all being one color.
Yeah, it's an idea for sure. I think something worth Kevin Bradley to consider perhaps when
Marie,
we take this to him.
It would also permit, if at some point you wanted to acrylic the whole thing, that would be a really, really easy retrofit. Whenever you were upgrading or whatever. So it's like there's no, like, whereas if you made a really small court, it would be really, really hard to then later make a larger one. This is something you can do in sequence really, really easily.
So I will tell you, just from a counselor's point of view, I know that there's one hang up with the acrylic courts, because when you acrylic the court, it becomes 100% seasonal. When it's an asphalt court, then we can dual purpose them, where they become skating rinks and stuff in the winter, where they don't advise the skating rinks on the acrylic because it actually damages the court. So that's, I know, some of the hang-ups. So, you know, maybe we could build some asphalt ones and some acrylic ones to maximize the budget.
So would you have a sense of, so we've been asked to report back on the number, sort of the ratio of accessible courts to non-accessible courts for this feasibility study that staff are conducting. And we have to do that, I think, by the end of next week. We've been asked to give feedback So can you weigh in on what you would think would be a reasonable number of accessible courts to ask for as part of this research that's being conducted? And this is Kevin Bradley's office that's conducting the research. Karen Liu, I believe, is the name of the staff member who's reached out to us. Would you think one is sufficient, or should we be asking for two?
Kim,
What is the grant? Yeah, what is the grant for? Isn't it 6?
Yeah.
So the grant, yes. So the grant is for the courts that are under construction now. And this motion, so it's basically a motion that's been, I guess, reinstated. So it originally was, and I'm not sure of the proper terminology here, so forgive me if I botch this, but essentially this motion or a similar motion was put forward last fall. And it was agreed upon unanimously by council. But city staff said, well, and that motion was to convert the 2 tennis courts at Painswick Park to pickleball. And staff decided that it would be more prudent to continue with the plan they had in providing courts throughout the city to create some equity, so that not all the pickleball courts with acrylic surfacing are centered at Painswick Park. So fair enough. So that motion sort of fizzled out, and but there was a new motion presented earlier this spring by Councillor Mike McCann to investigate again the potential for building pickleball courts at Painswick Park. But the number of courts that are part of this motion won't be feasible for Painswick. So the city, or Karen is asking for the number of courts and the types of courts so that they can consider appropriate park space for a pickleball center of this size. So I don't know if that helps or not, but the grant funding is completely separate. It's already allocated to these courts here. And what Kevin has told us is that they would be looking more to, there's a new rec center that is scheduled to be built, I believe, in the southeast end of the city in a few years' time. And they would be looking to position a pickleball center in that rec center. And it likely wouldn't be, 12 to 14 courts, which are part of this current motion. But they have to conduct this feasibility study as a result of the motion on the table. And we're sort of thinking long term here. Okay, well, if this motion doesn't flow through and we're back to pickleball courts at the new community center in a few years down the road, well, maybe some of the research that's being conducted for this feasibility study now may have a play or a role in this new rec center down the road. So we're trying to look at it big picture and make sure we've thought of everything.
Marie?
Councillor Thompson, you're breaking up again. You sound like a robot.
But if that was,
Councillor Thompson, you're
if we
breaking
were
up.
to build 6, I'd like to see 2 of them being accessible.
Councillor Thompson, we can't understand what you're saying.
At a minimum.
Councillor Thompson, you sound like a robot. We didn't get anything. Can you repeat?
Okay, maybe
They're a lot smarter than me. Trust me.
Okay, I see he's on mute. Maybe we'll let Marie go ahead and he'll come back. He's gone now.
Okay.
Tammy, can you check in with him to make sure he's okay? I'm concerned. I just want to make sure that he's okay, that's actually a technological glitch and not a health and wellness glitch. Because
Yeah.
he is driving. I want to make sure he's safe.
Yeah.
So Tammy, if you could do that for me, that would be great.
Okay, great.
Okay. I think accessibility is always on sort of like I don't know, like a gradient. That's not quite the word I want, but I guess a continuum. I mean, all the pickleball courts being accessible would be ideal. I think your next ideal thing would be to have one accessible pickleball court at every location where there are pickleball courts. The next would be then trying to just spread out a ratio of accessible pickleball courts wherever they can be put. So I don't think there's really like necessarily one solution. I think it's just sort of depends on everything else, and it's just a range of solutions. Just sort of depending on, you know, space constraints and what has been built already, what can be built in the future, that sort of thing. With the general principle being the more accessible courts in the more places, the better.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yes. Yeah. Are you looking for a specific number though, Kim? Or can we give you a ratio? Can we give you a percentage of what, you know, could we say, if you're building 6, we'd like 3? Could we do that kind of thing? I think that might be easier for us to get our heads around.
I think I heard one of the things I heard in the robot voice from Councillor Thompson was 2. And I think that might be something that is a good number, especially because I like the idea that he was talking about, that like he was kind of throwing out the comment that the sizing of the court like could be like the same for an access. So they could build like 6 regular size courts that could be made accessible depending on how they shape the asphalt, right? Because if they're so potentially, I think Marie Francis and maybe even Heather brought that up too, that like potentially there's like retrofit, you know, possibilities. So if you have 2 that are dedicated accessible, but they're all kind of in that same asphalt size, but then you discover after 2 years or 3 years that there's like this massive interest and we need a 3rd or a 4th, then if you've already got those built, then you can easily, you know, it might not be cheap, but it's a lot easier to retrofit that than tearing down fences and pouring more asphalt. So I think 2 might be a good measure to start. But I see Councillor Thompson. Councillor Thompson, I was just concerned about you, so I want to make sure. I want to do a wellness check. I want to make sure you're okay,
Yeah.
and then fill us in on what you were saying.
He was in a bad area.
He's still in the bad area.
He's still in a bad area.
He's still in a bad area, Councillor Thompson.
I think Doug Taylor has to leave. I think he's trying to say goodbye.
Yes, and I think Kim has gone off camera, so I'm thinking she might be getting ready for a pickleball game.
No, I'm here.
Oh,
Sorry,
here you are.
I was just checking something. I just wanted to see if I could grab the dimensions for an accessible court. So I'm here.
Okay, thanks, Doug.
Just and thank you for your concern. But I'm impressed you speak robot, because that's
Okay.
Can I go ahead and and ask one thing while Councillor
Yes.
Thompson has to sort his location and space out a little bit here. I think the thing that strikes me is the importance of, you know, if there are 2 courts going in at Painswick Park and 2 courts going in somewhere on the west end of town and 2 courts going in the north end of town, I think it would be ideal to have an accessible court at each of the locations where we are putting courts in. It seems to me that it is not accessible if it is not in your, at least your general neighborhood. And so if that was an option, I think, you know, combining that with the idea of leaving the space for the others to be expanded if needed, but, you know, to start off with, that would be my recommendation, would be that there be at least 1 accessible space in each location of pickleball-ness, which at some point Catherine's going to have to take me and introduce me to, because I have no idea, but I know she plays and is very good at trouncing people. So I will watch from the sidelines and learn.
Doug Taylor played too
before
his, I don't know if he's been playing with his new hip, but Doug Taylor did play pickleball quite a bit too. So.
Okay, so Councillor Thompson, can you chime in?
Yeah, do you want to try a third time? Third time's a charm, Councillor.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was saying how I was impressed by Cheryl. You cease to amaze me. You can speak, robot. You heard exactly what I was saying. I was looking, like, I think 2 to 3, like a 20 to 30%. But
Yes.
now Heather makes a very valid point. If, you know, they're not within proximity of where you live, then how accessible are they?
Yeah.
The only thing is, it's just, it sometimes comes down to the area that's allotted to you know, like we wouldn't be able to interfere with a soccer field, or sometimes we don't have the space to make the access. But I would like to have maybe a bar set at about 20 to 30% of them being, and that way, if when we're increasing, if we realize the demand is much higher, we could always add the accessible courts as the next ones. But I think it would be a great start at that. That would.
Yeah.
You muted there, Councillor.
Yeah, that's, I don't have nothing. I'm just gonna leave it at that. We got a good signal, and I'll end on that note.
Okay, thank you. And I think maybe we can actually, do we need to do a motion for this?
You know what? Let's do a motion.
I would say do a
let's
motion.
do a motion. Like, because I think, like, it's great that there's a couple of motions already on the floor here. It's great that we have staff that we know are accessibility friends. That's awesome. But like, I think this will give some guidance and also help support Kim, right, in her efforts.
Yeah. So would we say something to the effect of we'd like to see 20 to 30% of the courts being built be accessible, and following that idea, we'd like to see them spread out through the city.
Yes, I think that's great. And so if we have Catherine, that could be the motion, with Tammy putting her clerk speak stamp on it. So she might follow up with you to wordsmith it tomorrow. And then if we could get a seconder.
I would second it.
Okay.
Yippee. All in favor?
Aye.
Yay.
Hey, thank you, everybody. And thanks, Kim, for bringing that forward to us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. It's wonderful to have the support, and I hope this works out.
Yeah, this is very exciting.
I certainly hope that moves things forward. Okay. And thanks for taking the time, Kim. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks again for fitting me in.
Okay, we have one more
Bye, Kim.
item on
Thank
the
you.
agenda. Thanks very much, Kim. You don't need to stay.
Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Okay, we have one item left on the agenda here, the discussion regarding site plan review meetings.
Yes.
Is this something we need to discuss today?
It's not a discussion. I just, it would have been a discussion if we had time, but we don't have time, but I don't want to defer it. We had Madeline come from the planning department to discuss site plan review and possibly getting everybody who was interested in coming and participating in that. And I had this brief thought that we would give everybody who was interested access to our Apply system. And I looked into that, and there's no way that's going to happen because the licenses are like $800 a license. And so that's just not going to happen. So Madeline and I met and we talked about what could possibly happen, like what would work for her, what might work for everybody. And so what we're going to do is we're going to set a meeting that is going to exist outside of the Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting. And it's going to be within her quarter, she'll have like a list of site plans that she'll know that she needs to be reviewed or are upcoming or whatever that she wants your perspective on. And we'll just invite everybody, and then whoever can come great, but we're not going to move the date around. It'll just be like, come if you can, and if you can't, no problem. She will always be providing that accessible perspective, like based on the legislation and stuff like that. But if you are able to come and participate, then it'll be your lived experience. There'll be virtual meetings, so you won't have to physically come, but she'll be able to share her screen, share the Apply system with you guys, and so that you can see the site plans that are looking for comments. And so that's what I was going to suggest. But Marie Francis, you had a hand up?
Not really. You answered it as you went along.
Yeah. So if we're in a space where we're safe to meet again at City Hall, we can do that in the Sir Robert Barry room where we have the very big screen.
Yeah. I think that would be super helpful.
Yeah.
Because I think trying to judge plans on these really small
difficult.
screens is really challenging. I think there's kind of a really good flow when you get a group of people together physically looking at something and can all look at like one area. I think that's, especially with this sort of plan, I think that's super, super important. But obviously we're in the middle of a global pandemic.
We are, so we'll do what we can.
90 millionth wave or whatever.
But that's okay. But because potentially, like if we have proper physical distancing and PPE, because not everybody's going to be able to make the date on, maybe everybody will, but if there's only 3 of you that can come, then maybe I can book the Sir Robert Barry room. But regardless, we're going to just go ahead. We're just going to test it, see if it works. And if it doesn't work, then you guys tell me and we'll figure something else out. Okay. And so I just didn't want to put that all in an email first. So you heard it here. Now I'll stick it in an email, and come if you want to, don't if you don't want to, no pressure.
Okay. Sure, thank you. That's a wrap. I think we are complete. Did you just wave, Heather?
Cheryl a question?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
It's just because Kevin Bradley's name was mentioned, and because of the summer break, I was just wondering, have we had any feedback on the accessibility swing? We've kind of missed the summer.
It's so funny because the family just reached out to me to say, hey, what's happened with that? So I just got to check my, gotta escape so that I can check my email. I have an update. They're looking at, they're doing fittings right now. What are they doing? Yes. So right now they're doing facility fits and to find out where the swing and its users will go, so that they have an accessible path of travel. So they're because they're doing like renewal of the playground space that the swing is going to be located at, they have to do the site works first. And the update I have is that they're doing facility fits and site work fits for placement. And that's all the information that they could give me. And I just got that like 2 days ago, because I was saying, what's happening with that swing? Because I think the expectation that Kevin had in the spring was that by the fall, we would be a little bit further along than we are. And COVID's kind of put a wrench in that. It hasn't stopped it completely, but I don't know that, I think the hope was that we would have the site works done and the swing in before Christmas, but I don't think that that's going to happen. I think what we might have is the site works done and then like space holders, but not the actual equipment in. That makes any sense.
So we've found a funding source, or we have an allotted amount in the budget.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
No, because I had put some money aside to try to help it if it was a funding problem.
That's very sweet. But I don't know if you're allowed to do that, Councillor Thompson.
Yes, we have a budget that we were allowed for park improvement.
But isn't that for yours? Like, that's for your constituents, though.
The thing is, it's for a park improvement. So the way I look, I'm the councillor of Ward 5, but I'm a part of the board of directors of the city. And for an accessibility issue, I would gladly put it in another ward.
I love that. Okay, well, if they want to have a prettier swing, I'm putting your name in.
Yeah, but I had done something in one of my parks. I put a light around a basketball court, but I had asked to allocate some funding if there was a funding issue with the swing. That's why I was asking about it.
Okay, yeah, so my understanding is that Kevin has all the money that he needs, combined with the money from the family and the money from the budget that was agreed upon. My understanding is that he has what he needs, but I can certainly double check and circle back. But I'm pretty confident that he does, because he wouldn't have told the family if he hadn't, right? And I think he's already told the family. The family have already been advised that this is a go. And he's so careful about that kind of stuff. I don't think he would have, got their hopes up if he couldn't deliver. So.
Yeah, I hadn't looked at any other projects until I had finalized with that, because I said, I wanted it to, actually get done. So
that's super. That's super.
Allocated.
I'm pretty sure that's squared, but I'll look back to my emails for anything that confirms that, so that you can kind of have that in writing, so that you can release those funds that you have extra before the end of the year. So
perfect. Thank you.
No problem. This has been a great meeting, everybody.
Hey, now that's a wrap.
Have a great night.
Have a great night, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.